Without further ado, Peter Bell.
Thank you, good evening, everybody. Hello, Kirkwall. Thanks for coming along. Kirkwall has been kind to me, very kind to me, at least compared to other places that I've been visiting over the last few days, where the weather has been cruel. The people have made up for it. The people have been warm and hospitable and generous, but the weather has been appalling. And I've come to Orkney, which is supposed to be the frozen north, and what I actually saw today, sunshine. Yes, I actually saw a little glint of sunshine. Strange it was. Yeah, I didn't quite get to put my vitamin D pills in the bin yet, but I did see a glint of sunshine. Anyway, here I am, and I almost wasn't. Believe it or not, I managed to get lost. I'd switched off my Google Maps app, and I couldn't be bothered punching the stuff in again. So I decided to do it the old-fashioned way and ask a local, who then decided that he was going to walk with me up the street, and then. We were chatting away fine. He was a lovely man, and then we got to this bit, and he pointed sort of vaguely, and he says, "Oh, you'll find it okay." And I thought, I admire the vote of confidence. I really appreciate that, but the information content was slightly wanting. But I asked another local, and I got here. I'm slightly. I have to apologise if I'm looking slightly dishevelled, because I have been travelling now for about a week, so I'm beginning to look as if I'm living out of a suitcase. Thanks to the miracle of modern plumbing and men's perfumery, I don't yet smell like I'm living out of a suitcase, although I notice most people avoided the front row. I'm about a week into this, and I'm also, now that I've come to think of it, especially dishevelled because my beard trimmer, my razor, obviously thinking that I was off on a jolly jaunt, decided to have a wee holiday for itself and just stopped working. You see that bit there, that's what we call the preamble. That's the bit where you blather away. It's supposed to wait for the important people to get here. And now that the important people are here, we can get on with it. You didn't come here to listen to me, but actually you did. You're very professional, very professional. This is, I don't like to repeat myself. I hate repeating myself. And it's a bit problematic with the blogging too, because the issue that I'm dealing with is pretty fundamental, and there's a lot of stuff about it that doesn't change. So I'm constantly trying to find different ways of saying the same thing. So I was 3 hours sitting in the bar at the Shore Hotel where I'm staying. 3 hours this afternoon sitting in the bar rewriting all my notes, and every time I rewrite them, it also starts off with one of these. This is right. It all starts off with one, and I'm now up to 3. So I hope you're not got an early bedtime tonight. And there's 3 bottles of Orkney's finest ale going into this as well. So I want you to know, and that might excuse something. Are you angry yet? This is the serious stuff starting now. You can tell. See the tone of my voice change there. Are you angry yet? If not, then you're either not paying attention or you're getting better drugs than I am. And I get mine for boots, so I'm getting the best of stuff. You're right to be angry. If you if you're not angry, you should be. And if you are angry, you should probably be even angrier. Not raging angry, no wild angry, no tearing the place apart and breaking things and knocking things over and spraying stuff on walls. No, that kind of angry. No. Cold, calculating, managed anger, righteous anger. The kind of anger that can energise a worthy cause. And our cause is worthy. The yes cause is worthy. Our cause is just. The fight for Scotland's independence is a fight for justice. It's a fight for economic justice. It's a fight for social justice, yes. But above all, it's a fight for constitutional justice. I've been a nationalist all my life, and I have no problem with using the N-word. Not the other N-word. I have a problem with that, but the nationalist one, I don't have a problem with that, because I quite happily wear a nationalist label, and I'm happy to wear it because I don't let anybody else write on it. Nobody else defines my politics but me. When I say I'm a nationalist, I'm the kind of nationalist that I say I am, not the kind of nationalist that anybody else says I am. I think I was born a nationalist. I actually can't remember a time when I didn't think Scotland should be independent. It always seemed obvious to me. It always seemed right. It always seemed fair. It always seemed just. And the necessary corollary of that is that the Union is inherently unfair and unjust. Now, I'm talking about when I was a kid, young, very young. I joined the SNP first when I was 12, back in 1962. I joined as soon as I turned 12. It was what I was looking forward to, the way some kids look forward to getting their first bike or whatever. I look forward to getting my SNP membership card, which was actually a card in those days. It was actually made out of cardboard. My membership has lapsed a few times in between, but in my head, I've always been a nationalist. There's a lot of background stuff. This is one of the points, but I often go into read digressions about why it became a nationalist, the things that happen in your formative years that possibly might have had an influence on this. I mean, you can never say for certain, because the same things happen to other people and they turned out quite differently. But there are formative things that happen, and actually came up in conversation. One part of this, one of these formative experiences, came up when I was in Stornoway a couple of days ago, 3 days ago, whatever it was. And they've got the Gaelic there. They've got it back, and that's fine. It's lovely. They get off the ferry and you hear people talking this lovely language. But there was somebody, I can't remember who it was. Somebody was telling me the story about how when they were children, they got the Gaelic beaten out of them. They weren't allowed to talk the Gaelic at the school. They got it beaten out of them. And I said, well, it was no different for me. In Fife, it was the same. I was at school, infant school and primary school in the sort of mid-50s. And we got an awful hammering. We got hit with sticks for saying I ken, or it's bra, or even just saying aye. That would get you a leathering. You got the language beaten out. So there's these wee formative experiences. There's another one actually. There's one I usually tell about, this map on the teacher's wall, the wall behind the teacher's desk. I'm going to leave you in suspense about that one. Because there was another one that occurred to me just today, and I'd forgotten about this until just recently. It was at one occasion, it must have been in the late 50s. I don't know what the occasion was. I should look into it. But her march, Betty Sachs-Coburg, was coming. She was coming by. I live in these villages. There's two villages, Limekilns and Charleston. They're down by the River Forth, but they're on this sort of loop road away from the main road. So we were all, the kids at the school. We were all getting taken up. She was driving past on the main road, sort of Rosyth Kincardine road, and we were all getting taken up there to line the road and wave the flags. And I remember the awfiest falling out with the teachers because I flatly refused to carry a Union flag. I just refused. And I got into enough of bother for it. Enough of bother. You were forced to carry the Union flag. You're forced to wave that flag. That's significant. These are little stories about one person, one kid, and just small incidents. But that was going on all over. There were hundreds and thousands of these incidents, and over a period of 300 years. When you add all that up, it's significant. See, I said I wasn't going to do any digressions, and I just did. It always seemed obvious to me, it always seemed right, and it always seemed unfair and unjust that Scotland wasn't an independent nation, that we weren't independent, that we didn't have our own government. I'll make a wee confession. I did go through the anti-English phase. When you know that some children have quite a well-developed sense of justice, a sense of fairness. They know when something's no fair, right? And when something's no right, you're looking for somebody to blame. And what with one thing and another, let's not go into it too deeply, because it was a passing thing. What with one thing and another, the English were an easy target. You're looking for somebody to blame. The English were an easy target. Anyway, trust me, I was well over that by the time I was 12. And anybody who isn't over that by the time they're 12, they want to have a wee word with themselves or their therapist, because there's something wrong with them. It's nothing to do with the English. They're just an easy target. The whole goodies and baddies analysis is just too shallow. There is something wrong there. There is definitely something wrong, but that has to go deeper. So at an early age, I started thinking about this deeper thing that was the problem. And it obviously wasn't the English, for various reasons it wasn't the English. And I came to the conclusion that the problem was the British state. Not the English, but the British state. And I'll be saying more about the British state later. I think it's on sheet 3. There had to be more to it than this. There had to be more to it than this shallow analysis. Because that was all about nationality and ethnicity, and I was never comfortable with any of that. I was never comfortable with patriotism. I never saw the sense of being proud of being Scottish, because it's not actually a personal achievement. I didn't actually have to do anything to end up being Scottish. My mother and father got together. They were in Scotland, and I was conceived and I was born here, and I was Scottish. I had nothing to do with it. Somewhat inconveniently for my tale, my father was actually born in Australia, but it doesn't matter. I was Scottish. Not a personal achievement. The so-called New Scots, the people coming in from Syria and Eastern Europe and whatever, they actually they actually, when you think about it, they've got more cause to be proud of their Scottishness than I have. Because they've actually made an effort to become Scottish. They've made a choice. And they've made some sort of changes in their lives. Sometimes quite big changes in order to become Scottish. So they've probably got more right to be proud of that than I have. But this whole concept of Scottishness is it's a bit iffy. It's a bit iffy. Because I can't see Scottishness as a matter of ancestry or origins. Being Scottish is not, or not only, a matter of common heritage. It must be at least as much a matter of shared commitment. Not common heritage, shared commitment. A shared commitment to the community, and the community of communities, which is the nation. It's as good a definition of the nation as any. And actually, some of the earlier talks that I did about 20 minutes just on that, the nature of the nation and different kinds of nationalism. But I was told it was boring, so I'm not doing it anymore. I enjoyed it. The thing is, nationality is a cultural and a political thing. It can't possibly be inherited, and it can't be assigned like on a postcode basis because of where you live. It's something that has to be absorbed and developed over time. This shared commitment, it comes from being in the community and part of the community. It doesn't come from your parents, and it doesn't come just from being born in a place. There's more to it than that. But shared commitment to what? Excuse me. Obviously to the nation, but again that doesn't explain very much. So surely this shared commitment must be to making the nation, the community and the community of communities work better. In the other thought I did, I likened the nation to a machine for making society work. And we all put in our wee bit to help make it work, and that's the shared commitment. We all got this shared commitment to making the machine of the nation work. So it follows that if you want to make this machine, this nation work better, it follows that you'll want control, you'll want authority, you'll want power. Otherwise, you can't do anything. Without it, you can do nothing. You can't bring about change. And if you want to make improvements, you want to make change. And the thing about power, especially political power, but pretty much any kind of power, power is not given, power is taken. If we want the power to make Scotland better, then we have to take it. I want independence, not for any flag or anthem, but for the better, fairer, greener, more prosperous society and nation that Scotland can be. I want independence not because I think Scotland is superior to other nations, but because I refuse to admit that we're inferior to other nations. I want independence to make Scotland better, because the Union isn't working and we have to fix it. The Union is broken. It's always been broken. It's fatally flawed from the outset, right from the start. It was fatally flawed. Because of the way it was formulated and because of the purpose behind it, because of the reasons that it was done. It wasn't just fatally flawed because it was all done 300 odd years ago. It was fatally flawed because of the people who were doing it and the purpose that they were doing it. A purpose that had absolutely nothing to do with anybody's welfare, any people, and certainly nothing to do with protecting Scotland's interests. And there are two fatal flaws in the Union, which have been there since the outset. They're still there now, and they are fatal flaws. That means they will kill the Union. They haven't killed the Union yet because nobody's been poking at them. We're starting poking at them now. Those two fatal flaws are asymmetry of power. That's sometimes referred to now as a democratic deficit. It simply means that we're outvoted. We can never actually effectively represent our interests because we're outvoted. It doesn't mean that the English, if we wanted to call them, who have all those votes, the mass of votes, it doesn't necessarily mean that they wish us ill. It's just that they will look after their interests first. And because of the preponderance, their interests will always take precedence, even if that is harmful to Scotland. So this asymmetry of power creates an intolerable tension. It's been tolerable for 300 years, but it hasn't, not to people who were actually aware of it, but it has been accepted. We've gone along with it because nobody's been asking questions about it. We've started asking questions about it. The other fatal flaw is, and I think it is the big one, it's the massive one, it's the clincher. Even if we didn't have this asymmetry of power, the clincher is the issue of sovereignty. Sovereignty belongs to the people. That is just a fact. That is an incontrovertible fact. I don't think there's anybody in Scotland who would dispute that. The people are sovereign. Popular sovereignty is a concept that's kind of embedded in our psyche in Scotland. It's just part of that culture that we absorb. It's part of our nationality, it's part of our ethnicity. The people are sovereign. All political power derives from the people. The ultimate political authority, the people. That's what sovereignty means. The Union denies that. The Union flat denies that. The Union denies popular sovereignty absolutely. The Union stipulates that sovereignty rests with the Crown and Parliament. It rests with somebody apparently divinely ordained, chosen by some higher power, who then has this power on earth which is used by the Parliament, Westminster, and that supersedes our sovereignty. The people are not sovereign in the UK. The people cannot be sovereign in the UK. There are no changes that can be made in the UK that will acknowledge popular sovereignty or allow popular sovereignty. For example, if you want an illustration of this, how it's impossible, it cannot happen. You'll recall that in the Smith Commission proposals, there was a proposal to make the Scottish Parliament permanent, and that was tossed out. It was tossed out for the simple reason that it goes against the concept of parliamentary sovereignty. It undermines that concept, and they will not have that. because all the power, or the whole power of the British state stems from that whole concept of parliamentary sovereignty. So these are the two fatal flaws in the Union. When people become aware of them, and when they start to feel the effects of these fatal flaws, and be aware that what is impacting them stems from these fatal flaws, then they will reject the Union. Devolution does not fix any of that. It is not a fix. Devolution is an affirmation of parliamentary sovereignty. Devolution is them saying that they have the power to grant us what is ours anyway. Devolution affirms parliamentary sovereignty. It is not a concession to popular sovereignty. Devolution was never an answer. It was never going to fix the Union. Now, that is not a criticism of Alex Salmond, praise be unto his name, because the gradualists who took over the SNP back in the day, there was this tension between the gradualists and what I've called the absolutists. The absolutists said, no, we must stay on the path to independence, no diversions, no sidetracking, that and nothing else. The gradualists, pretty effectively led by Alex Salmond, said, no, there's a different way to go about this. We accept devolution and we just gradually build it up. We use that as a means of driving the whole independence campaign, the whole independence project. Who's been proven right? Sure as hell not the absolutists. It's the gradualist approach that has brought us to where we are now, like that far away from achieving our goal. So devolution is not a fix. It doesn't fix it at all. It just it maybe kind of damps things down for a wee while, but that's by the by, because devolution is dead. It's a dead end. It's finished. There's no more constitutional tinkering. We've had enough of that. Are we on our third Scotland Act now? Third Scotland Act? Maybe is it the fourth? I don't know. Constitutional tinkering, enough of that. That's why I want independence, because I want to fix that. I want to fix it properly. Devolution doesn't fix it. I want to fix it properly, and only devolution will fix it. That's why I want independence. But is that even the right term? Is that the right way to think? Is that the right way to frame the argument? Because saying that you want independence implies that it's somebody else's to give. And how can that be? How can someone else own democratic justice? How can someone else own sovereignty? How can it be in their gift? We have to ask the fundamental questions about this, and we have to ask: is Scotland a subordinate petitioning a superior in hope of a boon or favour graciously or grudgingly granted? Is that what we are? Or is Scotland an equal partner, an equal party to an anachronistic and dysfunctional political union, which, being detrimental to Scotland's interests, must be dissolved? We're not asking for independence, we are proposing to dissolve the Union. We are determined to dissolve the Union. This is a change of mindset that I would like to see going through the Yes campaign. Moving away from this idea of asking for or even demanding independence. We don't have to ask it of anyone. It's ours. We just take it. Is Scotland now, or is it about to be, subsumed into a Greater England, a one-nation British state? Or is Scotland now, and is Scotland to be in the future, like any other nation? Are we now like any other nation, but for a political union which the people of Scotland, which prevents the people of Scotland making their nation work better? And is it worse than that? Sheet 2. Is the union actually bad for Scotland? Not just unfair and inconvenient and something that we would prefer wasn't, but is it actually doing harm to Scotland? Does the British state actually work against Scotland's interests? And I contend that that's yes to both. The British state is bad for Scotland. The British state does work against Scotland's interests. Because I contend that the Union is seriously detrimental to Scotland. I contend that the British state is systemically incapable of representing Scotland's interests. And further, that by its very nature, the British state is bound to act against Scotland's interests as it pursues its own. But we have to understand the British state. We have to understand what it is. It's not the English. We got over that back when we were 12 years old, remember. So the British state is not a country. I think James Kelman, I'm sure it was James Kelman. Every time I say this, mental note, must look this up and find the title. He wrote an essay, and the final paragraph of that essay was something along the lines of the British state was the accepted authority, blah blah blah. I thought I can write that better than James Kelman. Who's he? And I just find it triggered something in my mind. And it really made me think about it. How do you define the British state? And it's actually quite simple to define the British state. It's certainly not a country, it's not a nation, it's a system. It's the structures of power, privilege and patronage that serve the few at the expense of the many. It's a system, it's an established system, it's a system of established power, a self-serving, self-sustaining, self-perpetuating system. It's a system for maintaining power, it's a system for holding on to power. And any system that is designed from the ground up to hold on to power, to jealously grasp power, isn't going to give power away. Devolution, power devolved, power retained. That power has to be taken. It's not going to be given. And the Union is detrimental to Scotland's interest. Why? Because the Union, the British state, must act in its own interest. Now, as Scotland developed a distinctive political culture, and I could talk all night just about this issue of a distinctive political culture. Not so very long ago, maybe a year or two ago, people kind of they pulled away from this idea of Scotland having a distinctive political culture, because it seemed to imply, or some people made it imply, that people in Scotland, Scottish people, were somehow better than people in England. That's not what it means at all. It's not what it means at all. It's just that we have developed a distinctive political culture. I think we had a distinctive political culture before. But what happened with devolution, and what proved the gradualist case, was that because of devolution, that distinctive political culture was able to develop further, and it was able to diverge more from the British political culture, not the English political, the British political culture. And it was able to do that basically for a fairly simple reason, and that's proportional representation. Our system of proportional representation may not be 100% perfect, none of them are, but it made that marginal difference. It made that marginal difference. It doesn't mean, it's distinctive political culture, doesn't mean that the people in Scotland are better than people in England. It simply means that the needs, the values and the attitudes of people in Scotland are better reflected in public policy because of proportional representation, because of the way our democratic institutions work. Marginally better, only marginally better, but that's enough. But these attitudes and values are reflected even a little bit better, because you get this cumulative effect, you get a rolling effect. Because it's better, it gets better. Because people feed into it more, people are more encouraged to, people come out to meetings like this, people start to participate in democracy. I don't want to. I enjoy talking about this distinctive political culture, but I think now there's actually a general acceptance that we do have a distinctive political culture. It was denied for a long time, even within the Yes movement, and especially on the left. This idea of us being different was anathema to a lot of people. But we are different. That doesn't necessarily mean better, although I would have no difficulty making the argument that our political culture is better. Just look down, just look. Just look at the outcomes. I think that proves the point. Because we've developed this a distinctive political culture, there's been increasing tension, increasing conflict between these two increasingly different. There's a divergence, and we get these increasingly different political cultures. And I don't think I need to go into that very deeply. I think we all just understand that down south, where the British state holds sway, that's going one way, and we are going the other way. We're trying to go a different way. We're held back because of devolution, the constraints of devolution. Devolution isn't enabling, it's disabling. Devolution's all about withholding powers. It's not about granting powers, it's about withholding them. It's about justifying, rationalising the withholding of powers, and making the withholding of those powers somehow acceptable. Devolution, it doesn't help. But we are still, despite that, and again that's a mark of the distinctiveness, we're distinct enough that distinctiveness is taking it further away, that the divergence is going. That is very disturbing for some people. That's very disturbing for one nation British nationalists. It's very disturbing for people who think in terms of Great Britain. They think of the UK as a unified state, as a homogenised whole. And those people, label them British nationalists, those people have increasingly held sway in England, in the rest of the UK, if I could put it away, our UK. They've increasingly held sway. So it stands to reason that we get this increasing conflict, increasing tension between these diverging political cultures. That's it. To put it very simply, it's a threat to them. People down south look up here and they look at our NHS, for example, and they say, well, how come NHS Scotland gets a 90% approval rating from the public, NHS England gets 57%? There's an obvious difference there, and that's a problem for the UK government, the British state, the British political elite, because at some point some of these people down in England are going to turn around and say, I've heard all your wash about how we're subsidising them. I'm not too sure about that. It's just the fact that they're making different spending decisions. How come you don't make those kind of decisions? And that makes life awkward for them, because they are ideologically committed to the path that they're on. Neoliberal orthodoxy and this austerity fetishism of theirs. They're ideologically committed to that. So northern neighbours just across the border doing it differently, that's a threat. That's a challenge to them. And the British state responds to that conflict, to that challenge, by obviously by seeking to suppress, crush, destroy the upstart political culture. And that is what is happening now. Scotland's political culture, Scotland's democratic institutions, Scotland's democracy is under imminent and actual and real threat now. The whole context of the fight for independence has changed. We're now fighting to save what we've got, at least as much as we're fighting to achieve something else. Those fatal flaws in the political union mentioned earlier, they're festered and seethed to the surface. And the British political elite see the structures of power and privilege and patronage which sustain them being challenged by a wave of democratic dissent that has risen mainly in Scotland. And we're talking there about the Yes movement, a wave of popular democratic dissent of which the likes has not been seen. I don't know of anything comparable to the Yes movement. I don't know of anything comparable. I don't know of any movement of that size and a total absence of violence or confrontation, a totally democratic, peaceful, lawful movement that is nonetheless political dissent from the structures of power, established power. I don't know that that's ever happened anywhere else. Some historian will probably correct me on that. They see this challenge from this wave of popular democratic dissent, and they must address that challenge. They must address that challenge. This is political analysis 101. Know what your opponent's imperatives are, know what their aims and their objectives are. They must, by they I mean the British state, they must address this challenge that is coming from Scotland, from the Yes movement, from the SNP, from the Scottish Parliament, from our distinctive political culture. Excuse me. Preventing a new referendum is an imperative for the British state. Locking Scotland into the Union is an imperative for the British state. Locking Scotland into the Union on terms that are unilaterally defined by the British political elite, with no more than token, if that, consultation with Scotland's elected representative, that's an imperative for the British state. And that is what is happening now. Right now, that's what's happening. Brexit. See how I got all the way through there? What am I, 45 minutes in, without mentioning the B word? Had to go and spoil it sometime. Sorry, folks. Well, don't worry, I'm not going to talk about Brexit the way most folk do. I tried to write an article for my blog describing what I thought of Brexit and the way this British political elite are handling Brexit, or mishandling it. And I joked them, my attempts to describe it, my thesaurus caught fire. Couldn't stand the strain and trying to find the words to describe how bad this is. It's appallingly bad. It's beyond description because it's beyond politics. Politics is a wonderful thing. Politics is great. We all do politics. Oh, here I go, another digression. All of life is politics. All of our relations are politics. We've just got into the habit of only calling it politics when it comes to folk stands for election and councils and all the rest of it. But all of our life is politics. All of our relationships are politics. Politics is fine. And what they're doing isn't politics, it's something else. I don't know what it is. I don't have a thesaurus, ashes. Doesn't have words for it. It really is indescribable. I feel for some of the EU and Barney and their stuffed hat and the rest of them. I feel their frustration. They're looking at this because these are professional politicians and diplomats and negotiators. They're accustomed to doing things, and they've come up against this, and it's like this alien force that they've encountered. It's appalling, horrible alien force. I said I wasn't going to go on about it. I just did. I can't help myself. My point about Brexit is not that it shouldn't even be happening. My important point for me about Brexit is that it's provided the British state with an opportunity to redefine the UK and to redefine Scotland's status within a reformed union. Why did I say that? I say that the constitutional aspects of Brexit are very little addressed. Recently we've heard people like Mike Russell starting to address them, starting to refer to the constitutional aspects of Brexit, but it's not been well addressed. But as ever, the whole art and science of politics has been taken over by the bloody economists. We don't have politics anymore, we have economics. Politics is supposed to be about people, it's not supposed to be about money. But when we joined the EU, that was a constitutional change. The UK was constitutionally altered by us joining the EU. Evidence? Quite simply, the fact that we all became EU citizens. That's constitutional change. That's pretty fundamental constitutional change. There are probably other things, but that'll do to be going on. There was constitutional change. It was big constitutional change. Stands to reason, therefore, that leaving the EU will also cause constitutional change. There must be constitutional change when we leave the EU. But nobody's been talking about that. They've all been talking about trade deals and access to markets and all that kind of stuff. Nobody's been talking about these constitutional aspects. The British politicians certainly haven't. They've been trying to avoid it like the plague, and not without cause. We have to assume that the British state will take this opportunity. They had another opportunity. Digression. Smith Commission. I swear. Smith Commission. when they were putting that together, putting whatever one it was, Scotland Act 3 or whatever it was, there was an opportunity there to slip something in, a wee clause there somewhere, that would have been at least some kind of an impediment to another referendum. And I am absolutely certain that the British political elite, they had people on that. They were looking for an opportunity. But then the 2015 UK election happened, and they found themselves with 56 SNP MPs breathing down their necks, and John Swinney looking over their shoulder, checking their numbers, checking every word. So they didn't get away with it. Brexit is another opportunity to do something similar. It's an even bigger opportunity. And we have to assume that they will take this opportunity. We must assume that they will take this opportunity in the name of protecting Scotland's interests and our distinctive political culture and our ability to have a distinctive political culture. We must fight back on this. We absolutely must. This is not idle scaremongering. British politicians aren't even bothering to pretend anymore. They are openly threatening our democratic institutions. They disrespect the will of the people, as in the 62% Remain vote in the referendum. Just disrespect it. Doesn't matter. Doesn't count. It's only Scotland. They disrespect the mandate of Scotland's government. We elected that government. That's our government. And they disrespect that mandate. They put Ruth Davidson up there as if she's the First Minister. They put her on TV as if she's the First Minister. There's massive disrespect there. And they disrespect the authority of the Scottish Parliament. Even some of the people sitting, I prefer to say squatting, in the Scottish Parliament, refuse to accept the authority of the Scottish Parliament. They deny the authority of the Scottish Parliament. And they are now actively working to delegitimise the Scottish Parliament. Why would they be doing that if they weren't envisaging taking powers away? It's an open attack on our democracy. Look at the signs. I'm possibly preaching to the converted here. I'm possibly trying to convince you of something that you're probably sitting there. You could well be sitting there saying, "Yeah, we know all this, Peter." But for the camera, you have to listen to the language and the signs. You have to watch the signs. Look at how they excluded the Scottish government from the Brexit negotiations. It's not really negotiations. I don't know quite what it is, but they've excluded and sidelined the Scottish government and the Welsh, because this applies to the rest of the periphery of what they regard as the British state's heartland, which is England. But don't blame the English people for this. It's nothing to do with them. They are all served by the British state almost as much as we are. They're just all served in a different way. Those structures of power and privilege and patronage certainly don't serve the interests of people in England. No, not at all. But the whole of it, sidelined, excluded, and quite openly, and they're not even pretending about it anymore. And the way they ignored the Scottish Parliament's vote for the Scottish Parliament's affirmation of the government's mandate to have a new referendum. The Scottish Parliament voted for that. And we still have Ruth Davidson going on the television and saying that there is no mandate for it. This is massive, and it's purposeful. It's intended. It's intended to plant in people's minds the idea that the Scottish government doesn't count and the Scottish Parliament doesn't count. It's undermining them. It's delegitimising them. It's propaganda. And it's dangerous. And there's a language Sheet 3, the language. David Mundell. David Snackbeard Mundell. The other day, some time ago, I was thinking something else there. Some time ago, he came out with a phrase that sent a chill down my spine. And that phrase was UK-wide common framework. What an appalling thought. What an utterly appalling thought. Think of that in relation to our health service. What can UK-wide common framework mean if that is applied to our health service? Let's just suppose it is. Do you think it means that the NHS in England is going to be brought up to a standard where it gets the 90% approval that it gets got? Or do you think it means that the NHS in Scotland is going to be dragged down to that standard? Because that's the way one nation, British nationalism, works. It's dragging down. It will drag us down. We've made some steps forward. We've made some progress. They don't want that. They want this homogeneous island, everything the same, right across the island. That's what UK-wide common framework means. They will totally deny that has anything to do with the NHS. Oh, no. But they're taking powers in other areas, and if they can take powers in some areas, they will take powers in others, and they will keep taking powers until there's nothing left. They're rolling back the whole devolution project. They want to take us back 30 years. Who wants to go back there? Not me. UK-wide common framework. I detest the very sound of that. Then you had David Liddington, Theresa May's right-hand man, and he came out with he made this statement, and in there was this thing, and I paraphrase, but what he basically said was that discrepancies across the four nations of the UK could not be tolerated. We're back to common framework again. This is just another way of saying the same thing. We're not allowed to be different. We've worked hard to create the differences that we've got. We've worked hard to build the political culture that we've got, and the political institutions that we've got, and the public services that we've got. Not allowed. There must be no discrepancies. And sure as hell, that doesn't mean raising everything to a standard. It means dragging everything down. It's a threat. And then there's Theresa May, and have you possibly heard this when she said, I think I'm quoting the exact, I am quoting the exact words here because I looked it up. She said, we will not allow anything to damage our precious union. That's just as chilling as David Mundell's UK-wide. They will not allow anything to damage their union. What are we to take from that? We will not be allowed to do anything if they think it is damaging their precious union. There is at least an implied threat in there, and we have to assume that it's a threat. As I said to Pete Wisher, when Pete Wisher was talking about, he wrote an article about waiting till the impact of Brexit was felt. I said, I used the analogy, I said, when somebody's threatening to push you off a high building, you don't have to wait until you hit the pavement to know that it isn't going to end well. And the same analogy applies here. We have to assume that they are waiting not to push us off a building, but to drag us down into their mire. We have to assume that. Otherwise, we'll be there before we know it. One of the things one of the British states, digression. One of the states. There's a couple of ways that the British state. The British state's hard. The British state's tough. They've been at it a long time. if we're going to break the British state, which is what we have to do if we're going to restore Scotland's rightful constitutional status, we have to break the British state. We have to take our independence from inside and break out of that. So it's tough, it's hard, and we are going to have to do some really tough things as a campaign, as a movement and as a campaign, if we're going to achieve that. A couple of things that they do, and one of them will be well known to you, the other it might not be quite as well. There's the divide and rule. Divide and rule. That's a common thing in imperial powers. Not just the British state is guilty, but the British state is very guilty of this. Divide and rule, drawing lines on maps, and putting one tribe on one side and another tribe on the other side, and making sure the two tribes are in conflict, so that the British companies can get on with exploiting the resources while the natives are fighting with each other. I put it very crudely here, obviously, but you get the idea. Divide and rule. We all know that. The other one, though, is the fait accompli, where something's just done behind the scenes. You never hear about it being discussed in Parliament, you never see anything about it in the papers, and there's just this some sort of statutory instrument that emerges out of Whitehall, and the thing is just done. Can you pick that? I mean, drawing the lines on the map that created, that divided the subcontinent of India and resulted in 1 million people dying. The biggest mass movement of humanity in ever. That was a consequence of this fait accompli. They just woke up one morning and said, right, that's it, done. The line's drawn, there you go, that's it. And they're doing the same thing with this redefining of the UK. There's bits and pieces of it emerge, mainly because we have politicians who are looking for it and willing to talk about it in public, because we have an SNP administration in Holyrood able to do. If there was a Labour administration in Holyrood, we would never hear anything about this power grab from the EU. It would never be mentioned. It's only because we have an SNP administration that we're even hearing about this. That it's being challenged. But it's the same thing, fait accompli. Left to their own devices, they would just do all this. They've already given themselves the power, the authority, to rewrite unilaterally the Scotland Act, just to do it. And they will just do it. And then it will be presented to us as a fait accompli. And if you complain, if you kick up a fuss, so what are you making a fuss about? That's the way it is, that's the way it's always been. Why are you trying to disrupt things? It's just presented as if it's the normal, ordinary thing. The fait accompli, it's a dangerous thing. So, all this is happening. So are you angry yet? If you weren't angry before, are you angry now? I'm trying to make you angry, not at me. I'm just trying to make you angry. I'm trying to make you angry at what's being done to Scotland. Friends, I seek for Scotland no more than those powers and that status which other nations assume to be theirs by right. I seek only the capacity for the people of Scotland to shape their nation and society according to their needs, priorities and aspirations. I am done with pleading for powers which rightfully belong with our Parliament. The only Parliament in Scotland with any democratic legitimacy. I'm done with hoping in vain that our elected representatives might be treated with a modicum of respect. I'm not asking for independence. I'm demanding that the Union be dissolved as a matter of urgency. I have now talked too long. There's other issues. There's stuff that I don't cover when I'm speaking, simply because you've got to leave something for the best bit when you take over and we open up the discussion, and I'd like to do that now. Thank you very much for listening.
Does anybody have any questions or points they'd like to make?
What? So, I mean, I've covered everything completely.
No, I've got in because I've been following really closely the continuity bill, and I know that's all about just a belt and braces, it's keeping things as it were. But I think it's actually a trigger, and I've been watching all the debates. I think it's making actually Labour MSPs have a little think. That's what it's predictable the way the SNP have reacted to it, okay? And just as much so the Greens. But actually,
and the Tories.
Well, actually, some of their comments have been quite disgraceful.
Oh, yeah.
But the Labour, I found, is quite interesting, and the Liberal Democrats as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's made these people really comfortable.
That's a very good point there. This continuity bill is very interesting for a number of reasons. It's interesting just for what it is. It's the Scottish Parliament making legislation to preserve our difference, our different political culture, defying Westminster. There's all sorts of reasons. I also think it's proving the process for what comes later, not much later. It's proving the process for either the declaration of another referendum, or for another possible path is simply for the Scottish Government to declare that they are intending to dissolve the Union. And this is an idea that's gaining a lot of ground these days. Simply to say, we propose to dissolve the Union. We're not asking for independence. We're not asking your permission for it. We're proposing to dissolve the Union, and we will go to the people to have that ratified. If Westminster then tried to stop a referendum, then the dissolution of the Union goes ahead. It raises all sorts of interesting constitutional issues, and the continuity bill is kind of proving parts of the process by which that might happen. And it didn't appear out of nowhere. Folks saying, why isn't the SNP doing something? I said, you mean the Scottish Government? No, but why aren't they doing something? Well, they are. They obviously are. That continuity bill was there. Now, they've obviously been at least thinking about this for months. What can we do? And one of the things that the SNP have been, Alex Salmond was a past master of this. The most valuable commodity in politics is options. Keeping your options open. Precisely what the British government isn't doing in the whole Brexit thing. They're just closing off options, right, left and centre. Keeping your options, always having another way to go. And I'm prepared to bet that the SNP, Nicola Sturgeon, and all the people who are smart cookies like John Swinney, they looked at this and they developed various scenarios. And this continuity bill is one of them. And it's proving the ground. It's also acting as a vehicle for ramping up the rhetoric. If you just bear with me a moment. Oh, here we are. It's interesting that you use the word trigger. I don't like that because it's usually associated with Brexit, and Brexit is not a trigger for anything. There was always going to be another referendum. Didn't need Brexit. The fight for independence wasn't created by Brexit. If anything, all Brexit does is just shine this big spotlight on why we need to get out of the Union. Because so long as we're in the Union, things like Brexit can happen to us, can be done to us. Things like that and worse. I mean, the bedroom tax was bad enough. That was imposed on us. But here's Brexit, something we specifically voted against, massively, decisively voted against, and it's being imposed on us anyway. But it's not Brexit that's the problem. It's their ability to impose Brexit on us. That's the problem. It's fine to fight against Brexit and say, no, we should remain. But that's kind of missing the point. Because under that is this power to impose Brexit on us. That's what we must be addressing. So you get the likes of Labour, and you get the Remoaners, as they're, and they're talking about, oh, we must fight Brexit, we must maintain the single market and all the rest of it. Missing the point. It's the power to impose that on us that's the issue here. And I was talking about the constitutional aspects of this and how that's important. And there was this thing that Mike Russell said. I'll read this out because it's a wee antidote to the earlier quotes from Mundell and Liddington and Theresa May. We need a wee antidote to them. So we have this. Mike said, it is simply not acceptable for Westminster to unilaterally rewrite the devolution settlement and impose a UK-wide framework in devolved areas without our consent. That's about as explicit as you can get. Now that's quite extraordinary language in politics. It is quite extraordinary. It's extraordinary in the context of Scottish politics and the independence campaign. It's a ramping up of the rhetoric. And we've actually seen that over the past few months. I started to notice it on Twitter with some of the tweets from, strangely enough, the likes of Pete Wisher, who used to be obsessive about being positive all the time. But now he's prepared to get in there and turn the tables on them. And all power to him. All power to him. He's not the only one. Christina McKelvey is another one. What's it? I'm hellish with names.
Dornan. James Dornan.
That's the one. That's the guy that's Johnny Dornan. He's been really good, and it's gradually been ramping up. And that's not just come out of nowhere. That's the reins being loosened a wee bit, and it's all building up to something. You all know what I'm going to tell you is building up, yeah? Don't you? Well, most of any of you that read my blog will. It's Thursday the 20th of September 2018, which is the date of the next referendum. Continuity bill, to be honest, quite correct. Massively interesting, but all the stuff that goes round about it, all the stuff that hangs from it, the defying the presiding officer, not actually defying the presiding officer, it is just it's just using the limits to his power. Previously it was just accepted that the presiding officer could rule something ultra vires and that was it, end of story. But there's a clause in Scotland that allows them to, if the Scottish Parliament, basically the Parliament can overrule the presiding officer. So that's going to be handy when it comes to legislation to dissolve the union or have an independence referendum. This idea that we can get over that hurdle. There may be other hurdles, but we can get over that. So continuity bill, yes, very, very interesting. Yeah, sir.
If, as you say, we're looking at September 2018, it brings up a problem. For me, there are two essential elements on the road to independence. The first thing is to, as you said, the continuity bill the Scottish Government are doing, is to neutralise and constantly challenge Westminster, hold the checkmate them at every time, intellectually and all that. The second thing is popular engagement. Mm-hmm. We've got 6 months to try and bring about popular engagement to such an extent that we will turn that around. To me, that seems to be a remarkably difficult thing, because we need some form of passion being injected into the debate. We need something which is going to excite people, and I'm not seeing that as of yet.
Right. No, because we're not quite there yet. The thing
we're running out of time. If we want
we're not running out of time at all, because the thing that needs to be injected is exactly what we've been talking about tonight: anger, outrage, indignation at the way we're being treated. The problem with that is that cannot be sustained. It's very difficult to sustain that over a long period of time. So it has to be built up to a crescendo at exactly the right moment. So you've got to be very cautious with that. The enthusiasm you can maintain for over years. You can keep the enthusiasm going. You know, the whole positive case for independence thing. That enthusiasm has never really waned. People may be wearied of stomping the streets and standing in the rain and the cold at street stalls and such like. But in themselves, the enthusiasm never waned. But anger, people didn't stay angry for long. And the trick is to get them angry at the right time. And now is not the right time for them to be angry. But what's happening now is that we're starting to see the ground being prepared for that anger. We're starting to see people talking the way Mike Russell has been talking. So that there's at least there's that thought in people's mind that there's something going on here that's no right, that they need to start taking a look at. And the other thing that will be different about this time, apart from this, there's this anger that I'm talking about, and also the fact that to go along with that, there's this change of the whole frame of thinking about it, that we're not asking for independence. We are taking what is ours. We are simply dissolving a union that we are a partner in which no longer serves us. It never really did. We're just getting rid of something that is detrimental to us. It's a totally different way of thinking about it. And the other aspect of this is the add-on to the campaign, the independence campaign, the Yes campaign. And that basically is to add on an element of an anti-union campaign. Back the last time, we were all nagged to death about being positive all the time. You were never allowed, you couldn't say anything negative. You couldn't say that is bad. No, you have to talk about what is good. That was a mistake. That was. I hesitate. I'm not quite sure how to describe this. Mistake is wrong because it was probably right at the time. It was right for the time. I'm increasingly coming to the conclusion that the 2014 referendum, for all the result was a disaster, a massive disaster for Scotland, because of the licence that it gave to the British political elite to basically do whatever they wanted. They could pretty much do anything and say, well, you voted no. Sorry, I've lost my thread there.
Popular engagement. How do we?
This anti-union campaign is what we have to add on. We have to start attacking the union. We have to turn the thing back against them. All the things that they did to us Project Fear, we have to turn that back against them. I'm not saying we should emulate them. I'm not saying we should hire Blair McDougall and run our own project. We don't have to. We don't have to lie. We don't have to make stuff up. Our scaremongering is not idle. We can do the same thing with facts. We can show people what is actually happening, and that will scare them and make them angry. So it's a totally different campaign.
I think anger's it's a very valid thing. It has to be, I suppose, an indignation more than anything else. But I don't think that's enough in itself to bring people to make that change. I think you've got to promise people a better future, and that's where the positivity has to be in. It's to show how different we can be from what we are now.
We've already done that. We've done that. We've won that campaign. We've won the pro-independence campaign. We've won over everybody who's going to be won over by all the arguments about how good independence will be, and the potential that it opens up, the promise that it opens up, the capacities that it releases. We've done that. We've got those people. We've got that chunk of the electorate, and we ain't losing them. People don't drift back from yes to no. If they do, there's so few that they're insignificant, and they'll probably end up not voting anyway. No, it's this bit in the middle that we have to go for, and it's actually quite a small bit. We're talking, I think it's somewhere between 250,000 and 500,000 votes. We get a lot of that from demographic changes. Obviously, the British states acting against us here. They want to stop EU nationals voting. They will probably try to stop 16 and 17-year-olds voting. They will do whatever it takes. They're totally unprincipled. They will do whatever it takes. So that's what we have to be fighting against. But this bit in the middle there's a bit the soft nose. They could be won. They're people who maybe still could be won over by the arguments from the yes movement. But then, and I want to say something about that as well. The difference between the yes movement and the independence campaign. Towards the British nationalists, the Union Jack underpant wearing end of the spectrum, there's also this other little section of voters who are just about ready to start questioning the Union. I define two groups of no voters, just for simplicity. I'm sure there are more, but there's Unionists and there's British nationalists. A Unionist is somebody who has never questioned the Union, has never thought about it. A British nationalist is somebody who says you should never question the Union. So forget the British nationalists, we're not getting them. But these Unionists who simply have never thought to question it, and that's a significant factor. There are people there who voted no from a kind of inertia, simply because they didn't actually think about it. It was effortful or whatever. The status quo is fine, nobody's dying, there's no me. So there are people there who are ready to be poked into asking some questions about the Union, and that's what we have to go for. We already have that positive campaign in place. That's already working. It's been kind of working along a low hum in the background for the last 3 years or so. But it's still there. It's not going away. Look at this tonight. It's still there. The yes campaign's still there. So gearing up to address that little section, the soft nose, that's easy because we're already equipped for that. We're equipped to tell them all the story about independence. Although I actually say that we should totally focus on the constitutional issue and not get diverted into policy. That's another aspect of this. But it's this other little section. towards the British National Society, the ones that may be ready to start questioning the Union, and they could be crucial. They could be crucial. And who can say that we haven't got enough ammunition to mount an anti-union campaign, such as might just get some of these people thinking, well, maybe the union isn't all I just assumed it would be. I haven't really thought about it. Now I'm prepared to challenge my assumptions and preconceptions. I think they're an important section of the gentleman.
I didn't expect you to make me angry, because I'm not that kind of person.
Did I manage anyway?
But, well, I'm sitting here and I'm realising things that I hadn't realised. And that is that I discovered quite recently that, as I'm sure a lot of us did, that the Westminster didn't voluntarily do anything about devolution. Their hand was forced by the Council of Europe because of the accession states, the Baltic states. They pointed out the lack of democracy in an existing member, and the Council of Europe forced their hand. Now, if you are in the British state, which you've made several references to, I'm not talking now of individual politicians. I'm talking of the people that are career in the state. The people are still there from 1979 that were there then. The John Jappies on the other side. Now those people are seriously
John died
teed off.
recently.
Their people are seriously teed off. Because they had total power. Now they've had their hand forced by the Council of Europe. Then they got devolution. Now they find that there is a mirror state that has developed within their own camp. And they can no longer turn round and say it can't be done any other way. This is the only way we can do it.
Yeah.
Because as you correctly pointed out, it's different here.
Aye.
We're organising our health service in a different way on the same money. We're organising lots of different aspects of life in a different way on the same money. So they can't turn around. That is seriously around them. Those people and the politicians will just follow like meat wheel lambs on whatever party they happen to be, because they want to keep their civil servants happy, and they will take the first opportunity, and Brexit is that opportunity, to reverse everything that we have seen happen and reduce what we have got in Edinburgh to just a wee, if anything at all, an assembly that just gets to talk about things. Like the Grand Committee was going to be in
a glorified parish council, which is
because we're well beyond dissent. When the first referendum came up, we were dissent, but now it's establishment. We've shown it can be done.
Yes.
It's no longer dissent and rebellion. It's there and happening. We're on the road.
Yeah, I agree with everything you say there. There's a couple of interesting things in there about the point that devolution wasn't about giving power. It was about constraining power. It was because there was this threat from the Council of Europe. That's possibly overstated, but it was certainly there. And there was this growing undercurrent, as you said, not the wave that came later, and they pretty much thought, well, we've got a smart solution for that. Just give the buggers their parliament. It's uppity jokes. We'll just give them their parliament, but we'll fix it so that it's always under our control. And by our control, I mean the control of the British parties. A lot of people say that the voting system was set up, was rigged, so as to keep the SNP out. It wasn't really. Although the effect was the same, the voting, it was rigged. It was set up to ensure that the British parties would always have a majority, and that is actually that's an interesting thing that comes out of that, is the danger of the SNP vote slipping, danger of the SNP losing a majority. We just escaped that way. It's going to say that rise and that shower caused serious problems, and we just escaped that by the skin of our teeth. We also had the problem of the tactical voting by units. All the British nationalists voted Tory because Ruth Davidson had become Queen of the British nationalists. But there was always a risk of a grand alliance, and that it could still happen. it's by no means unthinkable that the British Labour and the British Tories at Holyrood would combine if the SNP are weakened sufficiently politically, then they could form this grand alliance which wants to form a government. This is a massive danger, because if Holyrood falls back into the hands of the British parties, then we are screwed. It's back to being the glorified parish council. It's back to being executive rather than the government. One of the most significant, history will say, one of the most significant moments was when Alex Salmond changed it from executive to government. That was actually a massive moment. Yeah, I agree with everything you say. There's a thing that I say about the independent. How long have we got?
Yeah, plenty of time.
Oh, right. I can go on all right. The thing I say about the whole independence movement campaign, the project. I talk about the independence project because that takes in both the movement and the campaign, which are two separate things. And if somebody reminds me, I'll talk a little about that in a moment. Now I've forgotten what I was going to say. The independence project. It depends on these three things. The SNP. It depends on the SNP, and this is one of the things that we've got to get across to people in the Yes movement. Stop all this nonsense about it's not all about the SNP, we don't need the SNP. Shut up. We need that SNP administration. If people weren't scared into realising that by the 2016 election, then they're just thick, and they probably shouldn't even be voting. Oh no, delete that. You can see if you can erase that. No, I'm joking, obviously. But it is that. We need that effective political power. The SNP is the political arm of the independence movement. We need that power operating within the British system. And it's operating quite well. Things are happening. We're starting to see them now. Not everybody's aware of them because they're reading the Daily Record and the Daily Herald, the Herald and the Scotsman, and they're listening to the BBC. So they're pretty much not aware of anything other than the fact that there's snow and there's been a murder and something's happening in football. That's about it. SNP. And I describe the SNP as the lever by which we will prize ourselves out of the Union. The silliness of what I call the righteous radicals. God, I'm going to get in trouble for this. On the left of the move. It's nothing they haven't heard before. They're busy arguing about what shape the lever should be and what colour it should be painted and who should get to paint it. We just need the lever, for goodness sake. It's the lever that we need, just get on with it. So we need that lever. But what else do you need when you've got a lever? You need solid ground, you need a fulcrum on which that lever can rest. That is the Scottish Parliament. Scottish Parliament is our solid ground. It's the base of our democracy. It all rests on that. The Scottish Parliament has come to be the locus of Scottish politics. Remember how the elections used to be different. Now the Scottish Parliament is a locus. Westminster elections were different. Now it's the same thing. Because the locus has shifted away from Westminster. Now the voting for MPs is now a secondary thing to voting for MSPs. We need that. It's the basis. Without that Parliament, we're as crippled as we are without the SNP. The third thing that we need, if you've got a lever and you've got a fulcrum, what's the third thing that you need? back to your science, you need a force, and that's the yes movement. The yes movement is the force that must be applied to that lever resting on that solid ground in order that we can break the British state and lever Scotland out of this union. And that sums up the whole thing in simple terms. It is described like that. I mean, anybody can see how that makes sense. I talked there about the yes movement and the difference between the movement and the campaign. And that's an important distinction, because they are two very different things. A movement is a popular movement. It's a campaigning movement, a movement for social change. It's important in the movement there's diversity and openness, and that is unconstrained. In the movement, this has been the power of the yes movement. It's taken in people from all over, it's taken in ideas from all over, and it's put them together, it's merged them together. There's been disagreements, but there's been just this general emerging. It is massively improved our whole political discourse in Scotland. Which is incidentally another difference in our political culture. We have meetings like this all over the place. There are others going on all over Scotland. Every night of the week there are meetings like this going on. We talk about politics. You never see any meetings like this down in England. That doesn't happen in British politics. It's now the norm in Scottish politics. You can even talk about politics in the pub, as long as you pick your pub. That's the movement. Diverse, open, unconstrained. The campaign is different. What the campaign needs is solidarity rather than diversity, and focus rather than openness. And it needs to be disciplined rather than unconstrained. Some of these words, like discipline, don't sit well with some people. But this is real politics. Real politics. It's politics in the real world. And we need some hard-headed political thinking about this campaign. After the 2014 vote, when I stopped greeting, there was all this soul searching about the campaign, what we now must refer to as the first referendum campaign. You'd never ever call it the last one. It was the first one. A lot of soul searching. Oh, where did we go wrong? What did we do wrong? We got the message wrong. Or we were wrong on this aspect of the economy. We were wrong on that aspect of the economy. We didn't. I was at an SIC conference a while back, and the speaker after speaker got up on the stage. One got up and said, "In order to win, we have to address the women. We have to get the women on side." Somebody else got up and said, "In order to win, we have to get the working class on side." Somebody else got up and said, "Oh, in order to win, we have to get the young folk on side." Somebody else got up and said, "Oh, well, we have to get the old folk." I said, "If you did done this in one speech, we have to get everybody on side." It's everybody. It's how we address these people. That's another matter. But I forgot what I was talking about again. How did I get onto that?
I actually think the 2014
Oh yeah, I know what I was talking about now.
Incredibly
Thanks,
successful.
Yes.
I actually think, considering what the BBC, the propaganda, the newspapers, the Vow, everything like that, the forces that were put against a yes movement that was all diverse, right? I think it was incredibly successful, and I still remember seeing queues of people lining up, registering to vote, that had never voted in their lives before. And I was talking to folk at work, a guy who's in his 30s, he had never ever voted before, and he voted yes in that referendum, and you think, right, that's a success in itself.
Yes.
That person has become politically engaged and talked about it.
Yeah, the whole thing was transformative, and it changed Scotland's politics. The Yes movement changed Scotland's politics, and you might even argue the Yes movement needed to have that whole Better Together project fear thing to react against in order for it to work. But you know, that's for the historians to discuss in the future. But there was all this. I'm getting back to my subject. So thanks, Fiona, for another prompt. There was all the soul searching about what we'd done wrong and how we'd lost it, and how we had to improve the message. We had to get a better message. How do you improve the message of independence? Independence is what it is. It doesn't come in different colours and different flavours. It is what it is. It's a very basic constitutional concept. It's possibly the most basic constitutional concept of all. It's about who decides. It's not about what is decided. It's about who decides. And I think we did well. We did very well. Which is not to say that there aren't things that we could have done better or differently. I tend to think now that we had to do it that way. It's wrong to say that we were wrong to do it, because although now we can see that might not have been the right way to do it, we had to do it that way at the time, and we wouldn't be where we are now if we hadn't done it. If we hadn't done it wrong then, we wouldn't be able to do it. It's a weird thing. It's difficult to get your head around. There was all these people who were talking about and debating. There was all this navel gazing going on. Folks sitting around in circles, gazing at each other's navels and disputing about whose fault it was. So there was a lot of the blame game going on as well. Alex Salmond obviously got the brunt of it, but very unfairly, I think. But there's an obsession that we got it wrong. People were kind of focused on the thing that we got it wrong. I don't think we did get it wrong. I think there was something lacking in our campaign. What we did right, but there was something that we didn't do. And I argue that what we didn't do was the anti-union bit, the assertive, even aggressive against the union bit. We didn't do that. We hardly did that at all. And anybody who did it tended to get slapped down. But when people, others were arguing about, they were talking about the Yes campaign and what went on. I thought, well, hang on a minute. I remember what I said about the difference between the movement and the campaign. How the campaign, you need this solidarity, this unified kind of focus and discipline. If we think of it as a marketing campaign, which basically is, it's a marketing exercise, and if we think of it like that, then if we want to know how to do it better, how to win, why are we busy looking at the losers? Why aren't we looking at the winners? Why aren't we looking at what they did and learning some lessons from that? You know, they must have done something. They won. Now we know that they had the media and all the rest of it, but even taking account of that, there must have been things in their campaign that they did that were effective. So I started looking at that, and there are a few things that you can quite readily identify that they did and we didn't, and that we could maybe do sort of in our own way next time for September. I'll slip that in again. And there were things like, there are two or three things that I usually talk about in this. I'll try to be brief. The things that their message, the no message, was concise and coherent, and most of all consistent. The no campaign never went off message. basically because there was nowhere to go. It was so narrow, so tight, so focused, so disciplined that there was nowhere to go. And everything about the No campaign was always referred back to Better Together. Think about the difference with the Yes campaign. The Yes campaign's message was diffuse. There were thousands of different messages going out from all the different groups and organisations and different parties. There wasn't one single message. It wasn't coherent, it wasn't concise, it wasn't consistent. In a movement, that's great. In a campaign, that's a weakness. In a movement, inclusive diversity is a strength. In a campaign, diversity too easily becomes division. In a campaign, it's got to be focused. There's got to be the discipline, and everything in the No campaign, everything was referred back to Better Together. In the Yes campaign, nothing. There was no centre. There was no place where everything was referred back to. There's arguments about that, but it's a feature of the campaign, something that we have to think about. One other thing that's worth considering, and it's important because one of the things that always comes up is talking about the media and the challenge that we have from the British media. One of the things that the No campaign was particularly adept at was. I mean, we had the prettier message. Our message was a lot prettier than theirs. But pretty doesn't cut it in politics, not in real world politics. Pretty doesn't do it. There was another thing they were good at, and that was what I call the propaganda cue. They were very good at dropping in phrases, little snippets. On social media, they're called memes now. I'm a bit uncomfortable with, but things like fiscal black hole, which doesn't necessarily have to mean anything in itself, or unanswered questions. That was another one. That's probably the best one of the lot from their perspective. Anyway, unanswered questions. Because their biggest weapon was doubt, uncertainty, creating uncertainty and fear. So this thing that questions weren't being answered, there were lots and lots of questions and they were unanswered. And they were very good at dropping these phrases that and everybody in the No campaign could pick up on at the same time. So you get people in TV interviews and radio interviews and meetings and writing letters to the press and writing articles, and they're all picking up on these same phrases. And that's part of why the British media propaganda campaign was so powerful, because there was that repetition and that blanket coverage, that saturation bombing, if you like, of phrases like fiscal black hole that simply lodged in people's minds. So when you went to the doors, people would say, "That's no. Why are you voting no?" Well, because of that big fiscal black hole. You don't want to go near that thing. I'll tell you. And they probably have a clue what it means. Nobody has a clue what it means. It's just a phrase. But they were very good at that, and that made their propaganda campaign. But we had nothing comparable to that. We had lots of people saying wonderful things. Aspirational things, inspiring things, but we didn't have these phrases, we didn't have these propaganda cues. And it's one of the things that we can learn from. If as a movement and as a campaign, if we get the idea across to people that if we can first of all produce these propaganda cues, which we can now through social media, because if we were powerful in social media back then, we're 10 times more powerful now. I said social media and alternative media, the blogs and websites that we have now. and we also now have the National. So we have this potential to get these propaganda cues out now. So if we can utilise that, we can take that idea from Project Fear and turn it to our own use, and produce these propaganda cues that our people can pick up on and spread, disseminate, and get something close to the similar saturation blanket coverage. It'll never be as big as the British media, but we can do more than we've done before. That's got to be good. Right.
Well, you kind of just answered the question, because it was going to be about the issue of the mainstream media.
Yeah, that always comes up.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I say about that, and I really thought long and hard about this, and I know a bit about the media, and thought long and hard about it. I mean, an SIC conference, I can't remember what it was. I don't get to go to SIC conferences anymore. Probably tell why. Richard Walker, lovely man, founding editor of the National. He got up and he did this speech, and it was about this issue of the media, and it's basically a speech. You could sum it up by saying if we're nice to journalists, British journalists, like say Tom Gordon and David Leask, if we're nice to them, we can maybe win them over to, oh, shut up, Richard. Yeah, that is just not going to happen. I mean, yeah, you read some of the stuff Tom Gordon's pumping out, some of his smear stories against oh, hang on a minute, that might be actionable. I better retract that. What the hell? You can empty my PayPal account if you like. Yeah, it's been this incessant drip of stuff about public services. It's all about undermining public confidence, people's confidence in themselves. The stuff about it's the NHS, and then it's police, and then it's education, and it's back to the NHS, and it's this constant cycle every day, especially with the Herald. The others are bad, but the Herald's the worst of all. You're not going to change these people. The British media is part of the British establishment. It is the media arm of the British state. It's the British state's propaganda machine. We're not getting that. We're not getting anywhere near it. It's not in its nature. It cannot accommodate us. Because it would be going against its very existence. My take on that is forget it. Why bash your heads off the brick wall? By all means, mount letter writing campaigns, get your letters into the media, go to the below the line comments, and see if you can get something in between all the drivel that comes out of these Britnats. Yeah, fine. Don't give up on it entirely. But for the most part, we're not getting them on site. That is not happening. So what we should be focusing on, what we should be putting all our efforts into, is making the most of what we do have, building it up, making it work better. The stuff that we do have, our social media and our alternative media. Just taking the example of Wings Over Scotland, for example, which is massively important in the movement. The guy's an arse. He's not a likeable sort of guy. But when it comes to investigative journalism, he's incomparable. He does stuff that if you remember, the newspapers used to do that stuff. They used to actually investigate stuff, go asking questions, digging stuff up from the past and from alternative sources, stuff that was buried, making comparisons and putting stuff in context. I seem to remember a time when newspapers did that. I seem to remember a time when there were even programmes on TV that did that. sort of real documentary, investigative documentary programmes. You don't get that much anymore. Wings Over Scotland's a gem. It's precious to us, and we need to build on that. I believe he's just done another fundraiser and exceeded his fundraiser. I think it was a month thing. It was going for 50 grand, and he got it. Sorry?
He's up over 60.
It's over 60,000 in about 20. He hit the 50,000 in under 24 hours. I mean, that's great, because what that shows me is that people actually recognise the importance. The other thing that tells you how important it is, of course, is the way the rest of the media hate him. They absolutely detest him. But not because he's an unlikable old sod, but because he's dangerous to them. He shows them off. He shows them off something rotten. Yeah? He's doing what they should be doing. And he's showing up these so-called journalists every day. Right, that's the ad for Wings Over Scotland. A wee plug for my blog, Stuart, have you done mine? Quid pro quo. Right, yes.
Just one thing. I was watching, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and there was on Twitter, a massive thread, and on and on and on about September. And a lot of people saying it shouldn't be September, it should be January. What makes you so focused on why should it be September?
Right. For one thing, that's a simple answer. Short answer. You don't get many of them. Short answer, it's good to be focused. It's good to have something focusing people's minds. It's no good if something's just it's not helpful if something's just vaguely in the distance. It might be there, it might be there. You give people something to focus on. See what happened as soon as the date of the first referendum was announced. The whole thing the yes movement took off practically overnight. They all started with one web page, 2 ways. The whole yes movement started on Facebook, funnily enough. It did. It was Facebook groups, and it all grew from there. And it grew massively, and it grew organically, because people had something to focus on. That didn't happen before, when a referendum was just something that was going to happen sometime in the future, but no one knew when. It took that date to bring everybody together. So it's good to have a date just for that reason. But I didn't just pick that date out of a hat. It was carefully calculated. And it's not just because it's the 4th anniversary of the first referendum. It's the closest Thursday to the 4th anniversary of the first. It's not just because of that. Actually, after the first referendum, after the result, after I kind of picked myself up, and everybody else picked themselves up, when we came back from that, it was just amazing. It's what that says about the yes movement. That's something special there. Yeah. We were supposed to be defeated. We were supposed to be down and out. The SNP was supposed to disintegrate. The yes movement was supposed to evaporate. That didn't happen. Imagine how. I mean, if they were aware at all, they don't really. This sort of thing doesn't really get through to them. The likes of Alistair Darling and that. They exist in this little bubble. But yeah, they won. They won. And then they had to sit and watch as the SNP walked away with all the prizes. And it must have been quite galling. Lovely to think of. I think it was Jamie Glacken. I'm pretty sure it was Jamie Glacken with this conversation. Jamie Glacken was then the chair of Scottish Labour. Not to do air quotes for Scottish Labour. He's a lovely guy. Yeah, he's a lovely guy. Get on well with him. And I was at the Count in Perth, and I'd spent some hours watching the Nose coming in and watching the Tories and Labour and Lib Dems all high-fiving and hugging each other every time I know they're cheering the humiliation and degradation of your country, you I make no apology for saying that. It was a horrible, horrible thing to watch. Disgusting, revolting. Still turns my stomach now. The sight of them celebrating this. Anyway, I mean, John Swinney and Pete Wishart wouldn't play glum as well. Well, we're all down, very down. Jamie Glarkin, decent guy, came over, shook my hand. He said something about the good contest or whatever. I can't really remember what I said. And I think it was him that I said this to, but I remember saying it to somebody about British Labour. And I said that they had fought this constitutional campaign. They fought it as a political contest, a party political contest. It's a constitutional issue, and they fought it as a party political contest. They won that contest. They lost the nation. That's been proved true. That's one of the times I was right, so I like to tell that story. But I didn't just pull the day out of a hat. After the result came in, in the aftermath, I did cry actually. I didn't cry at the time. I was just too exhausted. I went home and I sat in a chair for a wee while. My wife gets up early to commute to work. So I sat in a chair so as not to disturb her, and I was just sitting there just devastated, utterly devastated. I think I'd been on the go for 36 hours or something. I didn't switch the television on. I couldn't abide to see any more of it. I didn't cry at that time. Judy came down, she gave me a big hug, and it was fine. It was later on, I went and got some sleep, I came back down, and I was on the computer, and I got a message from a guy, Roger, his name is Roger. He's the oldest friend I've never met. We've been sort of virtual friends for 20-30 years, going way back to when I used to do stuff as Electric Hermit was my online nom de guerre, and I ran various message boards. Remember message boards? And I knew Roger then, and he sent me a message, and he's English. Lives down in England. He's always promised to come up and visit, but he never has yet. When he sent me this message, basically commiserating and just being awfully nice. And that's when I started grieving. I managed to avoid crying, and then you go and be nice to me, and set me off. Anyway, pardon the digressions. I immediately thought that, well, that's it. This is not settled. That cannot be the issue settled. It cannot possibly be settled by that no vote. We have to accept the result, but there is no reason at all why we should accept that the issue is settled. That issue cannot be settled because that no vote was won on a totally false prospectus. It was won on lies. So the issue can't be settled. If the issue can't be settled, that means we're going to have another referendum. And then, funnily enough, when I was walking along the street that day, the 19th, it was in the afternoon, I was walking along the street, a number of folk that stopped me and said, when's the next referendum going to be, Peter? We've got to go for that again, we can't accept that, we can't do that. And that got me thinking, well, yeah, when? So at that point, I was thinking, like, what can be what's the earliest we can have another referendum? And you mind during the first referendum, this is only half digression because it's kind of relevant. You mind there was this thing when the Sun, the big headline, I can't remember the date, but they had this exclusive revealing the date of the referendum, October 10th or something. And everybody was going about, Alex Salmon leaked it to the Sun, he's sooking up to Murdoch. And I said, that's nonsense. And they said, well, how else do they know? They don't don't know. They just picked a date. But they didn't pick a date at random. This is kind of what got into my mind. They didn't pick that date at random. It's actually it's not that difficult to narrow it down. Not just to get the actual date. You can, for about 100 years, all votes in the UK have been held on a Thursday. So, I mean, you discount Saturday and Sunday anyway. So that's the rest of the days of the week gone. So you've only got you've got the one. It's only Thursdays. And if you've got a choice, if politicians, if they've established power, if they have a choice about when if it's not something that's forced on them, like by the two 1974 elections, both of which I spent standing out in the freezing cold and the wind, as bad as it's been now. That was February and November, if I remember rightly. February and November.
November, I think. Yeah.
Nobody would choose to have a vote in that time. Those were forced. So you can pretty much rule out the whole of winter and the whole of summer. Some are for a different reason. Some are because people are away on their holidays, kids are off school, and blah blah. Autumn, spring and autumn, the best time. So you've pretty much ruled out another 6 months. And then you think about things like other elections, council elections, EU elections, when we used to have them, and Westminster elections, what other elections are in there. And you pretty much have to rule out everything sort of 6 weeks before that. If not more. So it cuts things down. You have to use a wee bit of judgment on that. Then there's things like big sporting events. I don't know if the World Cup final was ever played on a Thursday, but if it was, you wouldn't want to have your vote on the same day as a World Cup final, for example, or even on the same day as a Scotland-England rugby match. You'd want to avoid these. By the time you've done all that, you're down to half a dozen, maybe a dozen days. So then you start thinking of hooks. Is there some reason they would go for a particular date? Is it some particular centenary or something? You do a wee bit of thinking about it, but you're down to a very narrow range, a very small number of dates, and. Like I say, you then use a bit of judgment on it, and you make a call. And the Sun, they made their call, and they got it wrong. Quite spectacularly. I've made my call, and I got it right. Thursday, 20th of September 2018. Did I work for it? Just waiting on the call from Nicola. Just to confirm it. Talking about this working out of dates thing, what then happened was 2016, June 23rd, 2016, when the EU referendum and the Leave vote and everything associated with that, everything round about that. And you think, well, that kind of changes things. That's pretty massive. That's possibly even bigger than a Scotland-England rugby match. So you've got to take it into account. So I went back to my abacus and my calendar and my wee scribbling back in there. Actually, I just sort of figured it out in my head. I did a wee recalculation on this, and then I actually discovered, just coincidentally, because I was going from thinking about the earliest date that we could possibly have a referendum, I was thinking, well, what's the latest date that we can afford to have a referendum? So it went from the earliest to the latest. And I figured that out. It turned out to be exactly the same date. Thursday the 20th of September 2018. And that's where it gets interesting, that's where it kind of takes us back round the circle. Why does it have to be September 2018? And it's because of these constitutional issues. I was talking about the constitutional aspects of Brexit that I talked about earlier. And the British state's imperative to use this opportunity to lock Scotland into the Union and to slap down our democratic institutions and incidentally take control of our public services. Not the least of their problems with this is that they want to do trade deals with the US. No US corporation is going to touch health services in the UK so long as there's a Scottish government with power over NHS Scotland. They won't come near it. They see the Scottish government is a bunch of lefties, and there's an impediment to them making any deal. So when you get assurances that health wasn't devolved. Health has always been separate. It wasn't devolved. It's always been separate. And you hear assurances from British politicians that no, there's no intention of creating a UK-wide common framework covering the NHS. Don't believe a word of it. Don't believe a word of it, because that's the only way they're going to get these deals with US corporations, if they can offer them access to the whole of the health services. If there's any impediment there. September. Thursday 20th of September 2018. I'm not the only one that says that. Interestingly enough, there are a lot of people who agree with me. And there's one person who agrees with me that you wouldn't expect to agree with me, because I certainly never agree with him. And we're back to wee Fluffy Mundell again. Because just the other day, I think it was meant to be a sort of promotional thing for their upcoming conference, the one that didn't happen. And he put out this press release. And it was all part of this anti-democratic no to a second referendum campaign. Thanks very much, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for that.
It was just trying to sort of steer things up a bit, give the media something to report on and something to repeat, something to trumpet. And he came out with this thing. I can't quote it verbatim, but it was sort of it was along the lines of the important bits are argued. It was on. We all know John Nicola Sturgeon. We all know that she's going to impose a referendum on us in September. And hang on a minute. Why does David Mundell think it has to be in September? Why does David Mundell think it's important or even imperative that the Scottish Government have the referendum in September? Why does he think that? I'll tell you why he thinks that. Because he knows what the British government is going to be doing in October. October is the time when the British government are supposed to bring together all of their side of the negotiating package. It isn't really negotiation, but language gets a bit tricky when we're talking about Brexit, especially if you're trying to avoid expletives. October is when they pretty much have to finalise everything, because that has to go to the EU, and there has to be time for it to be ratified by the 27 real EU members. So it has to be in October. So if that's when they're pulling it all together, bear in mind that the constitutional aspects of it, this redefining of the UK, is all part of that. So that has to be happening in October as well. October is when that becomes the fait accompli that I was talking about earlier. Now, the question that you have to put to anybody who says, we can put off the referendum, we can maybe have it in the spring of 2019 or maybe even 2020, what you have to ask them is, right, how do you deal with the additional issues, the additional obstacles, the additional impediments that the British government puts in place at the end of 2018? How do you deal with that? We don't know what these impediments will be. We don't know precisely, but we know the kind of thing that they could do. They could, for example, rewrite the Scotland Act and simply strip away all the powers that the Scottish Parliament needs to call a referendum in the first place. Section 30 order or not, they could just simply strip away all those powers, just as a notion of what they could do. Or they could make conditions in the Scotland Act that in order to have any constitutional referendum, they redefine the whole UK, remember. So you say that in this new unified one nation UK that is being born like a phoenix from the ashes of the dreadful EU experience, that within this one nation British state, any constitutional referendum will need to be approved by a qualified majority of both the House of Commons and the House of Lords. Effectively, that's saying there will never ever be a constitutional referendum because you will never get that. So there's all sorts of things that they could do. And they will do. They will do something. Exactly what they will do, I don't know how far they're prepared to go on this. I don't know. One thing you can be sure of, I got the hand signal. One thing you can be sure of, whatever they do, even if it's not as drastic as the things that I've been talking about, whatever they do is only the start. Because that is a process for them. This stripping Scotland, stripping back the difference in Scotland, that is a process for them. Whatever they do then towards the end of this year, that's just the start of it. It can only get worse. And that is why we have to have that referendum on Thursday the 20th of September 2018, and we have to secure a yes vote. The union must be dissolved.
Okay, thank you.